afternoon is an exploration of bodily life. I would like to take a couple of minutes to make reference in a general way, and from there with you go to the specifics. It's a rather obvious fact with life that wherever we go in this world, our body comes along with us, so to speak. It is of the many, many items, we might say, in this world that we participate in, that the physical life, the body, is one of those which has immense importance and significance for us. Much of our peace of mind is related to feeling and being healthy physically, and how easily there is a loss of peace of mind when there is pain and sickness. So this mutual influence takes place in our life, a constant dynamic in which the heart and mind has an influence on the body. It can contribute to its health and its well-being. The same heart and mind, its condition, due to the intimacy, can have an unhealthy impact, make us unwell, make us sick. And we need a wide variety of resources to address this fullness of being human, of which there are many, numerous aspects to it, and one of which is the relationship to the body. Yeah. We live in very, very difficult times. Human history has, of course, a long, long history of very, very difficult times. And the one of the aspects of all of this in relationship to health is that, to a very large extent, we are fed by a food industry which is killing us. It has immense control over human population. Its primary purpose is to stimulate pleasurable sensations. It is encouraging human beings to eat processed food, chemical food, junk food, food which is fattening, food which is making us sick, and food which is having a long-term impact upon our health and well-being. We live in a time in which our governments are unwilling, unable to make any impact on the amount of fat, sugar, salt, and chemicals which are fed through to us day in and day out, with the primary intention in food and drink is to increase the level of addiction to those substances. Food has become one of the most major expressions of substance abuse. It's a tragic situation. The addiction is having terrible consequences on our communities, on the elderly, on the middle-aged, and on the young. And we find ourselves, though recognizing it, helpless and unable, except in few cases where there's enough consciousness, to actually do anything about it. It's not even easy for any human being to do it for herself or himself. And it's extraordinarily difficult to change this corrupt, rotten food industry and the system that it operates under through advertising. It's very difficult to change any of that. We are controlled, we are oppressed, and the impact on that is widespread on our animal community, on the terrible, tortuous conditions which they live under in factory farms, on the birds, the chickens and other winged creatures, and of course on fish. So we live in a situation with this oppression, this impact, and then we are told that it's your choice. As though a human being can, just like that, at any moment in her or his life, just decide, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to change the amount that I eat, I'm going to change what I eat, and I'm going to live a really organic, healthy food diet. Plenty of you here, perhaps all of you here, are certainly dedicated to that, to your credit, and committed to that. But you are a very small minority. That's not the situation for others. And with all the poisoning that's taking place and all the health consequences that is taking place, and that including heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, the primary causes of all of this is diet. It's not genetic, it's diet. It's what's being fed to people. And we look at all of that and we say, whoa, do I want to live as a kind of slave to that food industry? What do I need to consider in relationship to all of that? And it isn't easy to speak up either. It's not easy to address these matters. There is often a fear and anxiety that if we speak up about it, we'll sound like obsessives. We'll sound like food missionaries. We'll sound like, you're so judgmental or whatever. And because those voices go out to us a great deal, we stay quiet. We don't want to say, I live on a plant-based diet. We don't want to say, I am a vegan. We don't want to go to somebody's home or somebody's parties and say, frankly, this is not the food that I eat. We want to please. But in wanting to please, we lose our integrity. We have to keep trust and faith with what is, in this case, a healthy diet. And in the tradition, of course, they didn't have all of this problem of GM food and chemical food. It was all organic a couple of thousand years ago there. But it is a tradition of the Buddha, of exploration, of authority, of you and I finding our voice and not being afraid to express our voice. Not being afraid to say yes to this and no to that. Doesn't matter who it is. And for that, it takes quite some quiet inquiry and sustaining of our commitment and talking about it. And when people start to talk and start to share and start to say, we need to change things, need to change this criminal food industry there, and we need to change it because we are going to change our diet. We're not going to touch that food. We're not going to go into McDonald's. We're not going to go and buy the backside of a cow or the leg of a chicken. We're going to keep away from all of that. And there's more than enough protein in other diets. There is more problem in life with health with too much protein. And so we look at that and we explore that and we see, what are other people doing? What way can we connect and cooperate with others so that the occasional lovely piece of barfi which they make here, or the sweet, or the piece of black chocolate, which I have to say I love, etc. It's not because there is any hunger. It's for the sweet taste of, it's not to fill a hole. That's the difference. We have here a very modest of the modest diets, and a very big thank you, of course, to our beloved cooks, to Mahadev. It's a wonderful name for a man to have. Maha means great, Dev is Deva, a great angel. So we have a great angel looking after us in the kitchen behind us. And so there are examples, let us say, of as much as possible within the limits and the conditions of exploring and finding a quiet diet in which, in the relationship to that, one needs the capacity, and it's a great one for a human being to have, it is the ability to say no. It is the contemporary action of renunciation, of letting go. And sometimes we need, I'm one of those, we need a kind of stimulus for this. I might have the idea, I'm speaking, Christopher's talking now personally, I might have the idea, as I've been vegetarian, if I may say, since the 1970s. All right, since the 1970s. There. And once on a retreat at the Ward House in Germany, near Andernach, not so far from Bonn there, one night I had these immense bodily pains. I mean, I have a little practice, of course, with bodily pain. This was at another level. Whoa! And the bodily pains were just running all through the body. I had no idea what the hell is going on. And it started in the evening, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, it means 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I knocked on Nicole's door and I said to her, I need to get this checked out. I couldn't lie down, couldn't stand up, holding the stomach area all around here, etc. So very kindly they drove me to the hospital, and the doctor in the middle of the night said, oh, gastroenteritis. I thought, I know what that is. That is not what it is. And the next, they still with a lot of pain. It kind of went quiet and diminished. And unfortunately, next day in the evening from London, I was flying to Australia to teach in the forest. And the small incident of this is one of my. So I arrived in Australia, still long flight, still with the pain, still with the hot flushes, and my mum was there to meet me because she emigrated when she was 78 to Australia. I said, Mum, I'm feeling really sick. Need to go to the A&E, accident and emergency. And while waiting in the accident and emergency, the nurse came out with lots of people sick, you know, it's like you've been to these places. And finally, after half an hour, Mr. Christopher Titmuss? Yes. Yeah. And the nurse walked over. This I always remember. And the nurse said, oh, Mr. Titmuss, could you come? And your wife, this is my 88-year-old mother, your wife could come with you. And my mum, bright as bright, said, that's not my husband, that's my son. And I went, and now I feel a bit older now there. I had gallstones, 22 of them there, a relationship with gallstones. And I said, why have I got them? I have a decent diet. And the doctor said, blame your mother. My mum said. And my mum had her gallstones out. My grandmother had her gallstones out. My great-grandmother. Now it's my turn. And I've warned my daughter there. So, came back home to England. He gave me penicillin, which was chilled me out, and it was very helpful. And the doctor said, Christopher, you can have the surgery. I said, I live in Totnes. It's very alternative. I said, I live in Totnes. We don't do surgery, we do diet. And from that moment, I went to 95% vegan. Chai, that's too much to renounce. And so far, the relationship with the gallstones and I, we're getting on well together. No discomfort in 10 years or more. I use it as a small example that sometimes we have the quiet determination to make a change in our life. Are you going to wait till you get sick? Like I did? Are you going to wait until it's too late? That's the point. So, in the exploration, obviously, one important aspect to all of this is the relationship to food. And we have a lot to learn from the East. A lot to learn. There's still half the country here is still vegetarian. It's still the best use of land for growing rice and lentils and fruit and vegetables. And an animal, a cow, consumes a huge amount of food and feeds very, very, very few people. And so from the environment, and from us, we explore this and say, really, in my life, and that's the purpose of this talk, this part of the talk, is please, please look carefully into this. I'm actually not concerned with you and I living a long life. It's not the purpose. It's to live well. It's to live intelligently. It's to live happily. It's to live in a healthy relationship with the body. In looking and exploring the physical life and the manifestations and the expressions of it in the tradition of the Buddha, tradition of India too as well, it was found beneficial, and it may be the same for you and I, in the exploration of the physical, to see it in elemental terms. And this is part of the daily practice here. I'll give some emphasis to it. There will be a guided meditation in the evening. And it is said quite regularly with the Buddha and others that there are 6 primary elements. So it's by contemporary standards, it's simplistic, but from the standpoints of practice, it's very, very helpful because we can experience it. We have to trust our white-coated scientists with their views, but with this analysis, we can experience it. And the experience here is king and queen. Here, experience is God. Slight exaggeration, but you get the point. And the 6 are earth element. I can experience it. I can experience the body as earth element. You and I, we sit on the cushion, and the back side makes contact with the cushion. And that contact of the back side with earth element, with the earth element, called the cushion, comes together and it generates a sensation. Just by my mentioning it to you right now, you're experiencing the sensation. When the eyes are closed, who can make a difference when the eyes are closed between the cushion as elements and the backside as elements when the eyes are closed? I can't separate the one from the other. My eyes can. Oh, look, there's the cushion, there's the backside. The eyes make the separation. Convenient. But go to another sense called the body, and that separation of one from the other, in this experience of sensation, dissolves. We have an intimacy with the earth every moment of our life. Sitting in the chair, sitting on the cushion, is the confirmation of the inseparability of the human being, called this man, this woman, and this cushion. The same with the feet touching the ground. We are intimately related. So one is the earth element. The next, which we're exploring, is the air element. We breathe in and we breathe out. What we breathe in the air. We breathe in the oxygen, enters down into the cells, and it is released. So there is an ongoing relationship to the earth element, air element, the heat element, and heat also has equally significance for us. The air element is really important. Sometimes people say to me on retreats, so boring watching the breath, trying to watch the breath come in and out. My response is, put your head in a bucket of water. The interest in the air element will increase dramatically within 1 or 2 minutes. We've got about 3 minutes of life left in us, maybe a little more, if there's no air around. It could be, all being well, with enough calmness and equanimity, that we can mindfully breathe out our last outgoing breath of our existence and be clear and calm about it. It would be easier if we got some practice beforehand. That's all. Otherwise, Earth element, taking care of the body, posture, diet, movement, the wonder, the miracle of this phenomena. The air element, to breathe in air, to breathe it out, to feel the oxygen, to feel the release of the air, to feel the air and oxygen entering into the cells. The heat element, sometimes we are cold. It's a sensation. I hope you're all warm enough at night, in the night time. Sometimes temperature drops, sometimes there's coldness. Sometimes as well one feels it's incredibly hot. There are various sensations which you and I have a relationship to. They're the bare elements. Body, air, heat, liquid. Sometimes we're thirsty, the blood is flowing through our veins. The sweat is on the body. And with those 4 elements there, we have a relationship to each one. Comfortable, uncomfortable, content with, discontent with. The elements are not by themselves. There is a conscious human being called you, called me, who is experiencing these elements. What is the relationship to them? Sometimes they're working harmoniously and beautifully. It's a privilege. Sometimes they're under stress and under pressure. Sometimes we feel the pain and the age in the body, in the material. We feel the shortage of breath. Feel the heat in the body, the coldness in the body. We experience the blood, the water, the sweat, or whatever it might be. There's a relationship to it. So we can say, yes, there are the elements, these 4 at the moment, and there is the relationship too. And the 5th one is space, element of space. And sometimes, as we all know, we need some space. We sometimes need some space for some silence, some space to be still. We need to find some space inside of ourselves when we're attacked, so to speak, by our own thoughts and our own drama and our story. We want some space around all of that. I have a very good friend, some of you will know, who is a precious and wonderful teacher who has pancreatic cancer. Really remarkable and exceptional and wise human being. And since the diagnosis, which initially started off with an intense yellowing of the eyes, the eyeballs, and then with the skillful and necessary diagnosis from a medical team, diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and the outcome of that has lost most of the cancer, one of the most dangerous cancers that can affect a human being, and it's been a constant struggle. And to his everlasting credit, with his life living daily on the edge with a variety of periods of chemotherapy, necessary surgery, and much in the way of alternatives. Now, must be some 3 years, I would think now, still, remarkably, still alive in this world, still offering teachings, still seeing people, and still using an extraordinary, apart from a really wonderful book on emptiness, but also an extraordinary sense of the creative and of imagination, and giving many, many profound talks on these themes. And sometimes in these circumstances, and he is not the only one, he, in a period of time, one can go to 2 highly respected oncologists with a wealth of experience of dealing with very dangerous, shall we call it, cancers. And what's the response? When one goes to one, and I've heard this a number of times, particularly with other friends who also with AIDS and other issues, and one highly respected authority says, I know it's making you really ill. I know the treatment has a terrible impact upon you, but you really need to continue with the chemotherapy. It's keeping you alive. And another doctor, highly respected, deeply well thought of, top of his profession, says to the same person, look, you have to stop the chemotherapy. It will kill you. Got to make a decision out of that. The medication is never and could never be independent of the one who prescribes. Not easy. It is not easy. He put out a message recently, it's not a personal, but which friends have received, and I just want to mention this to you, is of course he is making full use of complementary medicine, the variety of expansive resources which are available, and in the message, the request which he put out, he asked, and now I'm asking you, whether any kind of knowledge, experience, approaches which might be helpful for a man who could be, possibly is, close to death, whose life is truly day to day in a way that perhaps you and I haven't yet known. And he'd like to hear other voices. Just to give, I mentioned this recently amongst some friends in Australia, and one person on the retreat said to me that she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And she said one of the difficult things with this diagnosis is that people immediately assume you smoked. It's almost immediate. Oh, you smoke. She said, I've never smoked, I never lived with a smoker, I have lung cancer and it is inoperable. I said, what supports you? She said, I have an international community of non-smoking women and men with lung cancer. She said, I am so grateful for the worldwide net and the immense support, and we keep in touch with each other, and we tell each other what's going on and where the developments are. It's a great resource. I had one woman come to me and she said, I had breast cancer. I refused to have an operation. Her family thought she was mad. She herself thought she was mad. How could you not? She said, I took a litre of pure organic carrot juice every day. She said, my skin went yellow. She said, I looked like a walking carrot. And took it day in and day out, week in and week out, and the breast cancer faded away. There are men and women with these kind of situations who explore and inquire there, looking at all the resources there, and sometimes out of the combination, something contributes in the healing process. It could be diet, it could be bringing a lot more oxygen, it could be complementary medicine, it could be the necessary surgery or whatever. But my goodness me, one is a free human being, and therefore the integrity of the freedom to explore. And therefore really keeping heart and mind open to the different diversity of avenues. And therefore all sickness is social. It's not personal. All sickness involves other people as well. A couple of years ago in here, we had the retreat, and in the evening time, I think it was an inquiry session. I'll speak to you about that in a day or so. And one woman suddenly, out of the blue, this is the magic of meditation here, it could happen to you. And I won't go into the details. The experience from the past, which had troubled her very, very deeply and had never gone away, which she had lived with for 2 or 3 decades. I think she was in her late 20s or so, and had troubled her again and again there. Came up in the meditation, right after inquiry, and it went. And she knew the issue was over. She could remember the event, and there was no longer any drama, stress, worry, hurt, pain, anger. It had gone. Just a bare memory. And then, in this release, this is to be mindful here, in the release of the energy, she went out through that door, and bless her, the sweetheart, she climbed the tree out there. Look, this is India. Trees are not too well rooted. Climbed up about 3 meters onto a branch, happy as a bird set free out of its cage, and the branch broke. She dropped 3 meters. Ouch, big time. The outcome of this, I learned how things are a little bit more social in India than here. So it was around, 9 o'clock at night. We told Sunu, got hold of him, rang up, got a vehicle round. There was a doctor on the retreat. He very kindly went, and another person, and they went off to Varanasi Hospital. I don't know if you've ever been in these state hospitals, not most recommended places, except for a learning experience. And arrived at the hospital, 11, by this time it was 11 after at night. The waiting hall was full of the sick. The heart attacks, the car accidents, the dramas, the violence, and there. What was different, it was social. Everybody was in the hall in the accident emergency, and you weren't waiting your turn to be wheeled off into a corner to be looked at privately. The doctors and the nurses, bless them, were simply going from one person to another, treating them all together, no matter what it was there. And there was something rather comforting about it. There. Yes, she'd broken her arm twice at the top. Extremely painful. But in that hall, actually, it wasn't so bad. And other people were smiling and talking, and family and friends. It's India. When one person gets sick, the whole family's got to be involved. And all together giving support to each other. It's powerful. The collective is powerful. The sharing is powerful. Being together is powerful. Still needing the correct analysis and process. We look at diet, 1. We look at the elements, 2. We begin to see sickness and pain, instead of so personal, more social. How can we support each other? So that consciousness, as one element, is conscious of the elements. In your practice here, finally, to use your good practices here, and in that application of them, be aware, instead of my body, this is me, this is who I am. Rather than that I and my, stay quietly, mindfully close to the body. It's not your possession. You're not the owner of it. It's a manifestation of nature. It's a formation of nature, which we give care to and we're respectful to. And then beginning to see this. At times, when you're experiencing the body, warmth, the heat element is revealing itself. Experiencing the body, the air element, experiencing that. Experiencing the body, the form of it, the matter, the backside, touching the cushion. The earth element is there. The liquid element. Sometimes people say, Christopher, I'm sitting and there's a huge amount of saliva, I don't know why, coming up into my mouth and just filling my mouth up. All right? Water element. Swallow it. Won't hurt you. Just came back from where it gone back to where it came from. There. And if it feels a little contracted in your meditation, space element. I'm not making it up. There is the actuality of the earth element, the material element, the cells, the bodily stuff. There is the air element. There is the heat element. There is the water element. There is the space element. And there is consciousness, which is being conscious of it. And learning to see in such a way, being conscious of, close to, intimate with. And if you develop that, you'll be fine. There'll be wisdom, there'll be clarity. And in the times when you and I are sick, you and I are experiencing some pain, you say, there's an interaction going on here. And if we keep our clarity, we can take the wise steps about what to do with that. I gave a talk in Bodh Gaya years ago, and I mentioned in the talk that the Buddha said that in his sitting meditation, in his old age, he was experiencing back pain. And right after the talk, the person said, one of the people on the retreat said to me, Christopher, could you get the quote, the actual text, the sutta, that means the discourse, where the Buddha said, in his meditation, he was experiencing back pain. I said, sure. He said, and would you send it to me? I said, of course, yes, I'm happy. I'll send it to you. And I sent it to him. He was writing a book about dealing with back pain. Because many people experience back pain there. And he got the quote from me. And the title of the book was, Even the Buddha Had Back Pain. Okay. Let's have a quiet minute together, shall we?